in here we are going to identify what are the models or theories that said about financial development. And in that, we identify few theories. We start with classical, then we completed Keynesian, and now we are going to few other models or theories that they said about finance sector development. So since our class is financial institution, the IMF has introduced financial development index. So normally there are some index means to measure some sort of thing, that poverty index, CCPI, that means consumer price index, like that way. Various indices or index is introducing. Actually, a little bit out of the topic, but it's okay to have this knowledge. In each and every index, there is a criticism. So then, anyway, the IMF has introduced they have done a research and evaluating around 185 countries, and considering around 10 to 15 years, and they came across with financial development index. So in that, they are going to identify what is the development of their financial situation. Since our next topics also quite relate on this one, in that one we are going to see how that this phenomenon is going to happen, is finance development to economic growth to financial development, like that. We are going to have a study. So then for it is also from this information also will help for that topic as well. Anyway, then what I need to say, so they have evaluate various things. So then things that we are going to discuss in future, some credit to GDP, and like that, various financial index. That means they identified some financial development index, and then they utilize those that means some factors as variable, and then they develop this financial development index. So then we have a financial development index as well, but it also has a little criticism. In everything there is a criticism, but to some extent we could have there is a possibility to measure the financial development index. So that's the information that I need to share with you. If you are doing any further studies, or if there are anything that you need to have an idea on that, you can go through that, and you can study all these things. If you need, I also can assist you. Since it's quite related to our topic, that means our module. So that's why I thought to highlight that, since it's now since it was introduced by IMF, and they have done it in a productive manner. Okay, we'll come to the topic. And so then our today topic is the McNan and Shaw, as we discussed. So in here we are going to have an idea how the McNan and Shaw have said about this financial sector development. And before I continue again, I would like to get your feedback. Is it clear? Can you hear me clearly? Is there any issue with hearing or anything? Communication barriers?
No, sir. You are clear.
Yeah, okay, good. So then we can go ahead. Fine. So in here, and first I would like to, and this message also I need to pass, don't get confused. So then you actually, why you are much why I'm saying this, you are much familiar with the Keynesian thought. So we always tend to think on Keynesian thought. So that's why most of the policymakers are going to say we all are Keynesian followers. The reason is why we know much on Keynesian thought and we always work on Keynesian thought. So since when we are studying things new, so then you please don't confuse with these things. So then what we are going to hear, what we are going to do, we are studying that same thing as it is, and we are going to have idea what they said. So then just have idea what they said, and it's up to you. So then your part is analyze this one, and you need to identify what is the most suitable model for each and every economy. So this was happening in each and every crisis in the world. The reason that means most of the questionable crisis situation was 2007 global financial crisis. At that time also, then most of the policymakers has a gray idea where to go and what to do, what sort of economic policies that we need to implement. So then so when they are in the crisis, when they face to the crisis in 2007, so then they try to evaluate various economic models, and then they identify in this situation modern Keynesianism is the best way to overcome this 2007 crisis. So then they apply those things with their after the analysis. So then 99% of most of the economies could be able to overcome like that. So then we are studying. So the message again I need to pass. We are studying all these things, and then we are doing evaluation, research, doing all these things, and then we identify which is the most suitable for our economy, as well as if we are doing a global context. So then for all this crisis situation, what is the most suitable one? Fine. So then in the McNeil and Shaw, when you talk about, so then they said, uh, uh, like this, they presented a strong case against the low interest rate policy advocated by neoclassical and Keynesian regime. So then they always promote the the hidden idea means they always promote higher interest rate. They go against with low interest rate, mean they promote higher interest rate. According to their framework, interest rate positively associated with saving, investment, and economic growth. So then they said positive relation with saving, investment, and economic growth. But the interest rate we studied until up to this level in Keynesian as well as classical interest rate and investment inverse relation, negative. Another name that we use, a reciprocal relationship. So then we study like that, but this theory is going to say the relationship is positive, but no worries, we study same as it is. Okay. So then the next point, on the other hand, Shaw pointed out that there is a vital role to be played by banking system in the economy. Therefore, reform in banking sector is required. So then another point that they have came across, so that is the banking sector need to be reformed, and then they are the one who made the play a big role in the system. Following this advocacy, many developing countries implemented finance sector reform, allowing interest rate and other associated price moving away from administrative charge. So then they came across with reform in financial sector and change on that means decision on monetary activities like interest rate and price. So then this is the point that they have highlighted. Then next one is Galby's model. The Galbus model, there are two sectors. There, one is less efficient sector, and the other is efficient and modern sector. So then they introduce two sectors within the economy, and one is less efficient sector, and the other one efficient and modern sector. This is quite like similar to the organized and unorganized market situation. So which is we are about to discuss a little late. In other way, we can say quite a very easy manner, formal and informal. So when we little had a discussion on the formal and informal, that formal means it has a regulation. So there is a body to monitor. But informal, there isn't any regulation framework, and it's nobody, no one to control this one. This is a simple idea. So in economy in Sri Lanka also we have formal finance institution and informal. So this is quite like similar, quite like that sort of interpretation. He also supported maintaining a higher interest rate. Higher interest rate is an efficient sector will attract the resources from inefficient sector. So then in here they are saying they supported higher interest rate, but Keynesian and classical, they supported lower interest rate. Especially the Keynesian always said lower interest rate is much required to uplift the economy. So then Keynesian said when interest rate is low, household sector buy more and more, consumption increasing, and firms go for more and more borrowing. So then they are increasing their investment like that. They always encourage lower interest rate in Keynesian, as well as a little bit on classical. But in here, they always promote higher interest rate. A higher interest rate in the efficient sector will attract resources from inefficient sector. Then the idea here, assume if anyone invest in inefficient sector, to have a little idea, we'll say informal sector. So for easy understanding, we assume it is interest rate is 5. So then efficient sector is a 10 interest rate. So then if the efficient sector interest rate is high, what happened? The funds in inefficient sector, which is on 5% interest rate, will all go for the 10% interest rate, which is maintained by efficient sector. So that's the idea they have say. Efficient sector will attract resources from inefficient sector. Then the next point, hence an increase in interest rate in efficient sector will reflect the inefficient sector too. So then that's the idea, means if they increase to 10% interest rate in the efficient sector, so then all the inefficient sector, which has 5%, also going to invest in 10% efficient sector. So now all in one basket. So all are went for 10%. So then that's why they are saying efficient sector means, so then the ultimately it represent the inefficient sector. Why? The inefficient sector also in the efficient sector basket. The next one, Kapoor. The Kapoor model. The model discussed previously are sufficient to explain the situation of closed economy. Kapoor and Matheson have built the model incorporating characteristics of open economies. So then they are saying that whatever we discuss model is to address the closed economy situation. So then they are saying the Kapoor model saying then their model is going to address the open economies, and it has the characteristics of open economies as well. Both of these authors have discussed the liberalization process in a dynamic scenario. The open economy means we know the liberalization economy is open, then more important export. Kapoor model is much closer to explain the Sri Lanka's behavior as it emphasized the difficulties of managing exchange rate. So then why they have mentioned this point? So we know when the economy is open, especially the country like Sri Lanka, why they have mentioned, why they have came across the name Sri Lanka? We are a developing nation. So then the developing countries, when uh, economies open, then they go for a liberalized process. They try to import more. It's an obvious scenario. The reason is why um, domestic farmer couldn't be able to compete with imported commodities. What is the scenario behind that? So we'll take a few examples. So then we'll take a potato farmer in Valimada. So we know the uh, when when we went to the market, uh, so there are Indian potatoes as well as our local will tell them Valimada potato as well. So actually, if the government didn't impose tax on Indian potato or some other imported potato, we'll name it as imported potatoes. So then we can buy the imported potatoes at a very low price. But our local farmers cannot give the potato to that price. The reason is why many factors are affecting. If we talk about our our context, Valimada farmers end, uh, so they cultivate uh, their production at low scale, and we know fertilizer, labor, land, everything. The price is high. No much subsidies for cultivation except the fertilizer subsidy. Now it is also fluctuating, and sometimes shortage of fertilizer as well. So the end scenario is what? The price of local potato is high. So when we talk about the imported potato, so they produce at a mass scale level. So they produce, they cultivate potatoes by acres and acres. So then their quantity is very high. So they are catering not only the local market, they're catering the international market. The production at a mass scale, high technology, uh, and some more subsidies from government. And in that, when we talk about further on economic concept, so they experience economies of scale. So we know as economies of scale, it's a downward sloping curve. So in downward sloping curve, uh, in economies of scale, when you produce more and more quantities, the unit price is going down. So when the unit price is going down, when you produce more and more, so then it will benefit for them. So then they can compete with the international market at very low price. So as of that reason, we always experience imported commodity prices cheap than the domestic or local farmers' production. So when a developing countries, when you talk about this point, when a developing country go for open economic situation or liberalization process, so they try to import more and more. Why? They feel imported commodity price is very high, sorry, very low. Imported commodity price is very low. So then they try to import more and more, not even that, the other products, which products that is not produced by uh, the country itself. The simple example is for in our country's perspective, the oil. So our highest import bill for oil. So like that, whichever the product is not produced by our countries try to import, as well as some competitive products also trying to import from some other nation. So then ultimate result was exchange rate depreciating. Why? When it's quite like a exchange rate also in exchange rate market, it also work as a demand and supply scenario simply. So then when you import more and more, exchange rate tend to depreciate. So then if meaning, so we are facing difficulties on managing exchange rate. So that's the, they have mentioned this point. Kapur model is much closer to Sri Lanka to explain the Sri Lankan behavior as it's emphasized difficulties of managing exchange rate. So then this is actually not uh, apply for Sri Lanka as well, whatever the small country which is mainly rely on importation activities. So then that's the idea here. So then we are moving to the next one, the neo-structuralist model. So we'll see what they have came across with this point. A group of neo-structuralists demanded characteristics that are proceed to McNaughton and show by analyzing effect of curve market. So in here, curve market also quite like a unorganized market. That means the curve market means that is not operating or regulating by the legal framework. So simple idea we can further discuss on the point that we discussed previously, the organized and unorganized, or formal and informal. So when we talk a little bit uh, on this one, before we talk about this point later further, simply as we discuss, the organized market is the financial institutions are regulated by legal bodies like CBSL or any other legal institution or government authority. The informal market mean, or the unorganized market means this market or this financial operation is not regulated by any legal entities. Why? The reason is it's sometimes its size is low, and some other many factors also affecting. Anyway, if we took simple example to address this point, we can say if you need a little amount of money, around 5,000 or 10,000 rupees, are you going for a financial institution? Sometime no. Apart from you are going for some sort of any pawning activity. So then you go and ask with your friends. Especially you are going and ask your close friend, can you please give me a 5,000 or 1,000 rupees? So I'll settle within a week. If not, then your close neighbor or the place you are regular uh, buying your essential commodities. So boutique, so the traders. So then you may ask, can you please give me 1,000 rupees? I'll settle it on next week once I get my salary. Or then you go for your landlord, or you go for your employer and asking, please give me 1,000 or 5,000 rupees. You can deduct it from my next salary. Or before that, I'll settle like that. You get it. So this sort of little bit of market. So this they are saying quite like that. So this curve market also quite like that. So then I got all this example to have a idea, a little bit of idea about curve market, since this is quite like new. A curve market is a stock market for trading securities not listed in CSE or NYSE, trading that occurs outside of general market regulation. So then, according to their interpretation, the new structuralist interpretation, the curve market is a market where the securities are trading, but not listed in CSE, and NYSE means CSE, we know the Columbus Stock Exchange, and NYSE in New York Stock Exchange. Like that way, the regulated body is not the trading is happening. It is from illegal manner trading activities. That means in other we can say it's not regulating. So that sort of trading market they are highlighting. The curb trading commonly occur through online or telephones after the official exchange have closed. So it is a form of OTC, over the counter trading. According to new structuralist model, the bank cannot interfere efficiently between saver and investor as done by the curb market. So then they are talk about a niche market. That means the place that the financial institution cannot be addressed. So then they identify this address, and then they work, or they identify a niche market in the sector, and then they address this point. Quite like simply we know the interest. So most of in trading centers, in Sunday fair or some any you can say vegetable markets. So there is some people getting interest, some day interest, weekly interest, like that way. So then something like that they going to talk about. Major criticism of model of McNan and Shaw is that they haven't incorporated the effect of curve market in their model. So then they are saying in this, the new structure is saying the McLean and Shaw model they haven't identified, which they have identified this curve market model. That means curve market situation in their model. Then they are saying the next point, the McLean and Shaw model assume two assets, money and gold, while neo-structuralist model assume three categories like gold or currency, bank deposits, and curb market loans. So then in the neo-structuralist they came across with a new point. They have named this as curb market. Okay, then we are going for a summary. Before we are going to summary, I would like to have any difficulties of understanding the things that we discussed today. That means McLean and Shaw, Kapoor, Galvis, and new structuralist. Any gray area and difficulties? It doesn't matter Sunday or Saturday. If you have any issue, please raise.
So just one question.
Sir, can you please?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, please.
Sir, can you please explain again the Kapoor model that I couldn't grab the meaning of that Kapoor model?
Okay. Yeah. It's like this. The model discussed previously are sufficient to explain the situation of. So then in here, the Kapoor model, they talk about especially the open economic system. In the, they are saying all the others is not, haven't talked about the open market situation or open economy situation, or in other we can say liberalization process. So in here especially they have talked about importation. So and when we talk this point, that means this point mainly applicable for developing countries or underdeveloped nations or economies. So then when the economy is underdeveloped or developing situation, so they always encourage to that means encourage for importation. Why? Most of the developing countries or underdeveloped countries are not self-sustained. So they are not producing their commodities by themselves. They always rely on importation. Simple example is Sri Lanka. Because of this liberalization, we also be lazy to produce by ourselves. So we always try to import, and each and everything. Then next, why we always encourage for importation, as we discussed, the importation commodity price is low because of this economies of scale. When you produce more and more, unit cost is going down. So then importation will be much cheaper than the domestic price. So then people try to import more and more, and people try to get new products which was launched in developed countries. So then people try to buy that new laptop, new computers, new phones, new vehicles, like that. As well as they try to now they try to bring some encourage to go for online purchasing as well. So then the ultimate result is what the much demand for the that means their exchange rate. That means our exchange rate. That means our currency is ultimately depreciating by we rely on more and more importation. So when we rely more and more importation, our currency is decreasing. So then we'll call it is depreciating against the other foreign currency. So then this is the idea that they have came across. Are you okay? Do you need more further clarification?
Thank you, sir. Clear.
Yeah. So then that's why they have highlighted in here the Sri Lanka. So that means it's an example, but it's not uh, especially applicable for Sri Lanka or whatever the whole developing or underdeveloped countries. So this is applicable since when they engage in more and more importation, it will definitely affect for their exchange rate, and it definitely would be able to manage it. Why more and more importation? It's finally it will be a problem for each and every country if they rely on more and more importation. Okay, any other question? Any other question?
So I was just wondering, these all these models, they have presented them based on like purely on like theoretical basis, or like in by doing any kind of uh, research or observations during certain periods.
Yeah, actually each and every, so we take only the I'm sharing that how they have constructed little bit of thing. Yeah, we'll see. Is it with me? So good point. Yeah, see, so then once we talk about, yeah, is it shared with you the document? This one, the word one.
Yes, we can see.
Yeah, so see, once you see this one also, it has explained little bit of how they have constructed and the way the multiplier and this thing is also. Then this Keynesian part, you see the others. Yeah, here see the McKinnon and Shaw model. So how they have constructed. So then they actually they need to do this sort of research, and they need to come across with some mathematical way how they have said like that. So it doesn't matter. So as I said, each and every interpretation, each and every theory, each and every index that we are introducing, there may be a criticism, but there should be a way of way of there is a way of presenting this one. So and it need to be as you highlighted, it need to be present as a research way, research paper. So we need to show how we have constructed. So like that way, these things need to be present as a research. So then only the others will accept. So then they will consider this is a quite like a finding of a theory like that. So there should be a there should there that means it need to be accepted, so that the criticism is there, but it should be some sort of reasonable way to accept this thing. So this is the one. This is the idea. So then they just cannot come and say this and like that, but it should be way of representing, and they should become, of course, with some economic theories, the previous one, and then say because of these things is line with these things, so I'm saying this is the way it need to be had, like that way they interpret the new way. So that need to be introduced with some sort of a scientific manner.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So then don't worry, there another question asking about the exam. Don't worry about the test, we have time. Just think, we'll study the lesson and we'll try to get the idea. So then we'll don't get too much stress. Now we are slowly and happily studying. And the next thing, since it was highlighted here, don't try to by heart the thing. The whatever that we discuss, don't try to by heart. Try to understand the concept. What is the things behind this? Try to understand the concept and take the concept to your mind. And it is the most easiest and interesting way of studying. So try to understand the concept and then keep on studying. Then the enthusiasm on studying will be happening. So then, so for the moment, don't take exam stress now. Now you start up the mod, that means program. You happily try to get new things, new knowledge. We'll get that, and then we'll see. Don't worry, no one has failed, as I said, except purposely failing. If you didn't participate your final exam, if you didn't participate for your midterm, and if you didn't submit these things, so then it's problem. If you are sitting means you are confidence on all these things, then definitely will pass. It's not difficult. So I always keep you in track. So I won't let down anyone. And all the last time also, all the students who sit and work hard, so they all went through. And I think if I said a little bit on the previous batch results, I think if I correct, there was 5 A's. Majority of them has B's, few C's, and failures also there. That means they not fail because they didn't submit the assignment, didn't participate the midterm, final exam, like that issues. So then, and if you didn't write even some sort of ideas in your paper, so I couldn't pass these things. Sometimes it's going for a second examiner, like that. So no need to worry about those things. You will pass. I know you are qualified. You are good. You can pass this like easy. It's not like bread and butter. Don't need to worry. Okay, fine. So then that's point is fine. And any issues with this, whatever thing that you feel need to ask, you can ask. It's not an issue. Yeah. Any problem with these things? Any gray areas? Yeah.
So one question that in McNan's theory, how it increases investments when we increase interest rate?
Good question. And you are saying, pointed out McNan and Shaw model. So they are saying again, if I clarify your question further, that means this theory said low interest rate. They are going against with low interest rate, and they always promote uh, uh, higher interest rate. So now your problem is how the higher interest rate will affect for economic growth. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. As we know that investments will pick up when the interest rates are low. So here it's the opposite.
Yeah, yeah. The point that they have come across, this one, they have saying that means when the interest rate is high, uh, what they are saying, people will save more and more. So when people save more and more, their argument is government can issue securities and government can buy this money, and in various ways of government expenditure they can utilize, which ultimately lead for country's development. So that's their point. So that's their argument in Mackinnon and Shaw. You got the point?
Yes, sir. That means that government investment will go high, right? Not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
private.
and that's why they have, see, they have in here, they have link the banking system as well. So they're saying the banking system in the economy play a vital role, and it helps for economic growth. So then see, in this point, Shaw pointed out that there is a vital role played by the banking system in the economy. So therefore reforms in banking sector is required. So that means they say their explanation, their identification is, now when we save more in financial institution, so then government can borrow this money and reinvest this money in various portfolios. So then in lastly, when these securities get mature, it will benefit to the financial institution or banking sector as well. How? Government is paying interest for their borrowing. So then interest is a investment of the banking sector. The interest that they getting from the government is an investment for banking sector. So then banking sector also developing. The government is also utilizing this money in a productive manner. So in the here we are talking about productive investment. So then once the government is utilizing this money for productive investments, so ultimately that government investment also benefit for economic growth, and once they get the interest from government, so then financial institution, banking sector also uh, uh, making profit with the interest that they're getting from the government for their securities. Is it clear for you?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay. Any
Thank you.
other question? Yeah. Any other question? Good.
Do they talk about any threshold for the interest rates?
No, I didn't think so. I didn't think. Yeah, and actually, in here we typically not analyzing what they said, because we not 100% studying. So just we are saying, we are taking what they are saying and then we analyzing. So when we are not deeply going to have an idea, but just we take a little bit of idea, and then what we are identifying what they have said. So that's and this sort of thing I couldn't be able to identify. Yeah. Any other issues?
Uh, so as a whole, these keeping interest rates high, these models like is it assuming that government is the main entrepreneur or like the main party who would do investments. Otherwise, the private investments would be much less big, right? Because the interest rate is high, the people would tend to invest, keep their money in the bank rather than invest in a business. So the government is
Yeah,
the final party who would have it, right?
no, in here, see, they are saying, that's why I said it don't make much complication. So then in here, they are saying interest rate positively associated with saving and investment as well. So then you are thinking on the inverse relationship uh, idea, and then that having that idea, you are thinking on this one. Actually, yeah, that's why we said we all are Keynesians. So that means we always used to think on the Keynesian perspective. So in here, they are saying, see, the R is positively associated with investment. So that means they are saying interest rate also high. So they are saying investment also high. Okay, then interest rate also high. So then investment also, they are saying high. It's we obviously know the interest rate is high, the saving is high, by the interest is high. But in here they are saying when interest rate is high, uh, investment also high, and this since they talk about the financial sector. So then the investment means they try to get more and more save, that means deposits, and then when they invest in quite like some other securities. So that sort of that means view they have. You got my point? Did I answer to your question?
uh, kind of, yes, I think so. What I understood is with the,
Yeah, that
yeah.
no, that see, they are thinking is different. Um, uh, that means they have quite like the reason is we feel it's confused. Actually, me also same like that, because we always thought the way Keynesian is thinking. So we always thinking, actually the most of the central bank report, most of the country's central bank report is also uh, printed and published having the framework of Keynesianism. So they have that uh, identification. So all the publication or the works and policy decisions also in the perspective of Keynesian view. So this is quite like different. So then they came across with quite a new way, according to their identification, according to their views. So then they are saying high interest rate. So then it is obvious, since we don't have any doubt about saving interest rate is high, it's an interest is for there. So then the interest rate is high, how the investment will go up. So then since they are talking about the financial reforms and their thinking angle is different. So then they are saying mm, when interest rate high, the financial institutions will invest in different portfolios, and they get more and more return for that. So that's their identification. Any other question?
So, what is the theory that you think that the current Sri Lankan that central bank implemented during this crisis?
Yeah, what sort of, you are pointed out what sort of that means policy implication? Can you please little bit clarify that? What is
Yeah.
your
For an example, that I feel that Makinen's theory that where government increases interest rates, and he currently also the central bank increased the interest rate. So uh, like that what
no. This is a quite different idea. That means we are saying why the central bank increased the interest rate, and why the central bank increased over the interest rate suddenly, since it was around I think 10%. Now it has increased 15-16%. So they are saying, why you are saying it's like that? What is that the question?
yes, sir. That I feel
Yeah.
that they have implemented Macken's and show model, that kind of.
No, actually, this point also we are going to discuss. It was mentioned in their one of report as well, central bank report. They have some sort of economic model. We call this is Hookie's theory. We'll discuss those things later. Anyway, it's good. The thinking on this way is the rational way is good. You need to have, so then only in your enthusiasm of studying this will be increased. Anyway, since you raised this, I pointed this a little bit. So they came across with a theory called Hookie's theory. The Hookie's theory means they try to increase the interest rate, and they actually their focus is to address this hyperinflation, and that's their main focus. Some initial situation there was, it seems some sort of unmanageable situation. The reason is why uh, for applying the so that means to perform the macro prudential situation, that means to perform the economy, there should be a cooperation with the treasury as well. That means in simply we can say the monetary and fiscal linking need to be have. That means not only the central bank, the government support also need to be have. So the initial point when they introduced this higher interest rate policies, so then when the central bank try to try to find solution for this point, at a point the government didn't support to some situations. So as of this reason, it didn't reflect the go down on the inflation situation. So as of that reason, at a point, central bank also couldn't be able to manage the inflation. Anyway, in that also we have little issues, but we are going to discuss all these things. Anyway, the main idea of the central bank is not anything. So government, central bank need to be increasing interest rate at that time. Central bank came across with theory like Hookie's, and with this theory is mainly apply for developed countries, especially country like Australia. They using these policies. So then this sort of policy implication they have utilized, and this was to address the higher inflation situation. And the reason is why we know when more and more money within that means when interest rate is high, according to the Keynesian point of view, money supply going down. So it's and according to the Keynesian argument, we call this the contraction in monetary policy situation. So that sort of having that idea, they introduced this one, not this one. This not the I'm pretty sure not the McLaren and Shaw. So they always stay standard on. So once you evaluate throughout all the years, they stand on the some way of Keynesian thoughts. Once we study all these things, we can identify probably in our central bank adopted mostly Keynesian implications. So even a 2007-8 global financial crisis also we implement some policies to minimize the effect of the 2007 global financial crisis, to minimize that burn. So then actually this was productively applied, worked. So then we didn't get much burn. So that point also we are all we are going to discuss and we are going to have an idea. So then this is not that point. So I'm pretty sure they didn't come across this point. They always having a little bit of a modern macro, that means modern Keynesian economic system. Any other?
So I think as a country we are still in the recession, but from I think 2007 Greece went through the same thing. So in that case, I think do we have any idea about what they used, what sort of economic models they used to come out of it, or is it?
Yeah, the Greece situation also we are about to discuss, and the Greece case was actually that the main trigger for the Greece situation was higher expenditure, especially for Olympic. So I think they have spent, if I am correct, the figure they have spent euro 7 billions for this Greece Athens Olympic. And if I summarize a little bit on that, and they fraud most of the central bank report, and they end up with high consumption activities. That means so they react out of their limit. That means they work beyond their limit. So that means they expenditure beyond their limit. They help to NATO. They give funds for NATO. They spend heavily for higher end cars and all these things, sport cars, and more benefit for the employees, early retirement age, like that. A very bad macroeconomic policies that they have implemented. So ultimately, the case was trigger for the crisis. So then they end up with some that means corruption, everything. So then at that time, they also applied some Keynesian policies. Especially the main reason was to overcome that crisis, the bailout. They got money from Eurozone around 7 billion. So bailout was the bailout was the mainly reason to overcome that crisis situation. Now it's being coming to the normal track. It's not that much of crisis situation than earlier.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Did I answer to your question? Anything that you need to know much?
Uh, so maybe I'm not sure whether this is directly related, but in Greece, I think after the crisis, there was the next political party came into the power was a communist or a leftist party.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they are, I think, so they have implemented their models of economic policies, right? So those was that help to recover, like, or is it that is that worsen the crisis?
No, no. That means their policy framework also had a little bit of Keynesianism, and it's not only one factor. Didn't so according to my study, what I saw, only not only that factor, few factors. That means the economic policies, and mainly they could be able to get rid of that with the bailout. That means they received around 7 billion euros. Yeah. Anyway, whatever the even that money received, the even country wise, we need to have some economic policies. The simple example, if we consider the current situation in Sri Lanka, uh, 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 you can see all the price of good and services is high, more taxes. The simple example is uh, the electricity and water price is very high. So it's that means it's quite like this. That means when we are in a crisis, we'll call this is austerity program. So then we need to tie our belt. So that's the situation of that means offsetting the dates. So that means the policy that we utilize to so when we need the money, so what we did, we at that time we didn't increase the tax, and then when we didn't recover that money, collect that money. What we did, we passed that burden to next generation. How that passed, we issued securities and take the money, and we did the consumption. That burden passed to the next generation. So when it passed to next generation, what will happen? The next generation is having that burden with interest. So then they need to pay that money with the interest. So in now in Sri Lanka, it went like that. At a point, it gets stuck. So at that moment, so once get stuck, the decision that we need to have taken the first, now we are taking. So now we are increasing all this tax and everything. Now we are trying to get money. So something like that. So now, even as there's another way I can say it, at this one, even that we get funds or some support from IMF. But I want to say this for one. So even we get assistance. So now we are getting from various World Bank and some other neighbor countries, and IMF support, Japan help, and various way we are getting. So even that sort of funds, external funds, is not sufficient. The country itself, some sort of economic activities need to be have. So then what now we do? Increasing tax and getting more and more revenue. Why we do so? Earlier in 2000, I may have pointed this in earlier as well. So in 2000, in the 2019 COVID crisis situation, even there is some securities, even there some securities need to be settled, even some securities being matured. We make more and more expenditures, and we reduce our revenue, or that means income. how we did that. We reduced taxes, more and more labors to hiring to the government. That means more job to the graduates, and giving more money free, like 5,000, 10,000, like that, to overcome this crisis. That means, sorry, this COVID-19 situation. But it's good. But we need to see how we are, and then which level we are in. After evaluating, after having a proper idea on our countries itself, then we need to make policy decision, not on a political popular decision. It should be economic decision. So like that, even whatever the funds or support assistance that we get from outbound, so inbound policy system, economic system, model thing need to be have. So did I answer to your question? Anything that you need to raise?
Sir, got it.
Yeah. Yes. So then we'll finish this one. So then we are going for a summary. So in classical, we discuss or determine the equilibrium level of saving and investment, and fluctuation between R and saving, and negotiation between R and investment. In here, represent R represent interest rate, I represent investment, S represent saving. And classical, we discuss money supply increase lead to increase price. So according to the Fisher's quantity of equation, and in here we discuss interest rate is a equilibrium price. And when we talk about Keynesian, the equilibrium between money demand and money supply, is interest rate. So then interest rate determine the equilibrium of money demand and money supply. And in here we discuss R is monetary policy phenomenon, and Y determine the level of saving and investment. So the income. So then consumption does matter. In here we discuss, so when you consume more and more, the output increasing ultimately lead to economic growth, and money supply increasing, why output increasing and affecting price. McLean and Shaw, they against with low R, they always promote high R. And in here they come across R positive rate to SI and EG, economic growth, require banking sector reform. And in here they identify two assets, money and gold. And Kapoor, they introduce their model for open economies, and it emphasizes difficulties of managing exchange rate because of this open economic situation, rely on more and more importation. And Galby's model supporting for higher R, and higher R in efficient sector will attract resources from inefficient sector. Efficient sector will represent the inefficient sector as well, in according to this Galby's model. In neo-structuralist, it was opposite to McLaren and Shaw, this one. And analyze the effect of curve market. And in here, gold, currency, bank deposit, and curve market loan were the categories or assets of this one. Okay, good. Any further clarification, anything that you need to raise? We'll go to the next one. We can discuss if you have any. Is it visible? The shared PowerPoint presentation, demand following and supply leading.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then our next topic is demand following and supply leading phenomenon of financial development. We'll try to address these things slowly. And under this, the first one is demand following phenomenon. In here, the demand following means when economy is growing, that growth lead to finance sector development. So then initially what will happen, the finance, that means economic growth will happen. So that means economy, further we can take like this economic growth. So then when we see how the economy is growing, when we think this one on Keynesian perspective, so assume you are getting a job, so then you have salary, income, end of the month. So now you make more and more demand, more and more consumption, demand on clothing, food, medicine, education, like all these things. When you do more and more demand, the supply also happening. So then when supply happening, so that means how the supply happening through the private sector. That means the private sector means the private investment. That means firm. When C and I increasing, so then ultimately we can see AD increasing. It lead to economic growth. This is a simple scenario. So then when it happening, so then the requirement of financial institution need to be arise. So then now you are getting money. So then out of that salary, you are trying to save. So then now you need bank account. So like that. So then when you feel you need the sudden loan, you need the phone facility, you need the credit card, debit card. Like that, you are feeling a requirement of financial assistance. So then accordingly, the financial services will contribute. So then when you are getting service from them, so then ultimately you need to pay interest for them. So with that interest, so they also now growing. So initially what happened, economic growth, then that lead to finance sector development for simply. So we'll try to have a read and try to have an idea. First, as economic growth, it generates demand for finance services, which called demand following. Demand following hypothesis postulate economic growth lead to finance sector development. So then in here, in demand following phenomena, who is coming first, who is coming in first role, or is coming in the picture first, the economic growth will come in. So then with that, later on, the finance sector development is happening. So that's the way simply we are having an idea on this demand following hypothesis. In this phenomenon, which creates in modern finance institution, their assets and liabilities and related finance services respond to demand created by these services by investors and savers in real economy. So as the simple example that we consider. So then with this, when we having a job, so then we need the financial services requirement support. So then simply we can address. So this is, we talk about that example, we talk about household perspective. So then once we think about this point in firm's perspective, firm's angle, so then say now they need to produce more and more to the customer. So now customer is making more and more demand. So they are asking, earlier that shop request 5 shirts. Now they are asking 10 shirts. So then firms thinking, oh, I need to produce more. So then they are also going for produce more and more. So then they save these things in a bank. Now they are being a prime customer with the bank. So then further, when then demand being continuously increasing, so now they need to buy a machine. So then they go for a finance institution, asking a lease for machine, asking a lease for building, some accessories, some raw materials, and for short-term credit facilities, overdraft, and all these things. So then with that also ultimate result is getting interest to the financial institution. So then when we talk about the firm's angle also, with this system, they also getting profit. So then ultimately with this contribution of household and firms, the finance sector development will be happening with the initial development of the economic growth. So this is the simple way that we are going to have an idea on demand following hypothesis. The nature of the demand for these financial services depend upon growth, output, commercialization, and the monetization of the economy. So then these things happening according to the size of the economy, size of the way the expansion is happening, size of the way the growth is happening. If it is a big push, the mass scale investment, so then growth will happen in a mass scale. So similarly, that will affect for financial institution development as well. So this is the next idea of that. So then we are moving to the supply leading phenomenon. The supply leading is a phenomenon by which the creation of financial institution and the supply of financial assets, liabilities, related financial services in advance of demand for them, especially the demand of entrepreneurs in modern sector. So then we'll take this one also and then we'll have a discussion. The supply leading hypothesis postulates that the direction of causality from financial development to economic growth. So then in supply leading phenomenon means first development is happening on financial institution. So in here, the house, that means household. So when we try to understand this point, household no need a bank account. The existing entrepreneurs in the area no need some financial assistance. But now what they do, they introduce this one. Assume they introduce current account. So then once they introduce current account to the firms, so then they take the current checkbook and then they purchase the commodity after giving data check. So then their business, now they have more and more stocks than earlier. Why? They purchase raw material commodities through data check. So then they deposit money, this data check in little date after selling these commodities. Like that. So then customers. So then they no need, but bank is giving simply the credit card. So then now their customer has credit card. So now they buy their commodities and services what they need, even that they didn't have money. So then later on they will settle. So then like that. So new product, new services will come in introducing by financial sector. So then with that economic growth will happening. So this sort of system we call supply leading phenomenon or hypothesis. So we'll come to this one later. Supply leading phenomenon has two functions: transfer resources from traditional sector to modern sector, promote and stimulate entrepreneurial response in modern sector. So then they're saying transform traditional sector to modern sector. So then if they have some traditional activities, now they have transferred into the modern way. Now they introduce teller machines, depositing teller machines. So then now they have no need to go in the queue, stay in the queue, and buying cash, no need to go stay in the queue, opening account, no need like that. So they introduced new method and ways. So then more time saving for these sectors. So then they can utilize that time for other activities of earning money or family, that means functional activities like that. So then they can utilize. So then people will encourage to get in this service. So then even if they earlier there was a system to get a leasing facility or personal loan need to have, actually in those days when the introduction of leasing in around 1990s, in 1990s, it's a big process to go for a leasing. That means leasing means to buy a vehicle from leasing. So many documents that we need to have: BTT, bank account, tax report, 2 guarantors, like that, and a lot of time, lot of evaluation. It takes nearly 1.5 months time. A personal loan also quite like that. Now that the situation has been changed, now even a day, 2 or 3, we can get this facility according that means according to the customer's level of transaction, or it's how the customer is dealing with the bank. If it's a prime or subprime, accordingly that the duration of the services depend. So like that. Anyway, what I need to say, it's much easier than earlier, less restriction. So seems like it has transferred. So then what happened? Now the giving by the financial institution, the lease or hire purchase, now its size and volume is so high rather than earlier. Why? They have used modern system, as well as they have introduced some that means some loan schemes to uplift the entrepreneurs, some loan schemes to microfinance business, loan schemes to small and medium entrepreneurs, some machineries, facilities, low interest rate lending, like that is some attractive products to attract customers as household and firms. So then ultimate all these reactions, ultimately what will happen, the financial institution also getting profit, and ultimately entire output within the economy going to increase. So then ultimate result was, with the development of financial system, economic growth will happening. Yeah. So we'll see this. There's a question. Asiri, can you please raise this question again? Asiri Dias, can you hear me? Hello, Asiri. There's a question in the chat box. I am going to address your issue. Please let me know in which the question is related to which area. Hello, Asiri, can you hear me? Okay, fine. Asiri, once you please raise it again. Yeah. Okay. How about others? Can you hear me? Is there any difficulties on hearing or are you with me? No.
No, sir.
We can hear.
Hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I keep continuing. I am feeling. I assume it's everything is okay. But if something wrong with the hearing and everything, please disturb me. Yeah. So Asiri, you can raise that question again. So until that, we'll keep continuing. Yeah. So then the next point, further combination of demand following. Okay. Before that, any difficulties or gray area on understanding the demand following and supply leading situation? If you need, I got little bit of examples to explain this one. If you need further clarification, need to take more examples to have idea, please feel free to raise. Okay, silence assume no any issue, but if you have any issue, please raise it again. Okay, we'll keep continuing. And then the next point, further, a combination of demand following and supply leading hypothesis postulated at financial expansion and economic growth are mutually or bidirectionally causal. So then in here they are saying, until up to this level, the demand following means first come in economic growth, then the financial development is happening. The supply leading means initially the development of financial institution happening, then the development of economy or economic growth will happen. So the third point, they are saying this is happening simultaneously. So earlier we talk about by, that means unidirection. That means finance, economic growth to financial institution development, unidirection. First one, financial institution development to economic growth, unidirection, one side. Then they talk about both things happening together simultaneously. Economic growth to financial development, finance development to economic by direction. So this sort of situation also they're saying within the economy. The next point. Japan between 1870s and beginning of World War I represent an example of consequence of this situation, supply lead and demand following finance. So then example of this bidirection causality is Japan in 1970s and beginning of World War I. More, as the process of real growth occurs, the supply leading forces gradually becoming less important and the demand following was being dominant. And what is this point? As the process of real growth occurs, supply leading gradually become less important. Anyway, when the economy is growing, so then what happens? Its direction is to the financial development. So then when this is happening first, so then next financial development, so then it won't go the other way around. That's the idea here. So then now we are going to see how this studies has applied in practically and what sort of research has been done. So how they have identified what is the use of having an idea of this demand following and supply leading. So then we are going to see how to which extent the researchers have utilized this concept to get an idea. Fine, this first article that they have used, the Nicholas. So then the Nicholas, according to his work or according to his piece of work, supply leading versus demand following hypothesis and empirical evidence from sub-Saharan African country. They have used 3 sub-Saharan African countries. The study investigate empirically the direction of causality between financial development and economic growth in 3 sub-Saharan countries, Kenya, South Africa, and Tanzania. So then this study was conducted among 3 sub-Saharan African countries. So the sample is 3. The study seeks to answer one critical question: does financial development in sub-Saharan Africa exhibit supply leading or demand following response? So then they need to identify at that time how this causality work. So then according to their identification, they identify the demand following response is found to be strong in Kenya and South Africa, which is Tanzania supply leading response is found. So then at their study, they identified at this time. So then the time also need to be have. So which period? 2010 to 2020, like that way. The time period also need to be in here, need to be mentioned. Then only we can have a clear idea why when the time change, the response issue is also to be is subject to change. So then in 2 countries they identify demand for. That means when economic growth, supply leading happening in this country, when supply leading happen, that means the financial institution development will happen. The financial institution development happen lately. So then this is the way the outcome of the research. So then the next one, Musafar's one. This is on 2007. Does financial development cause economic growth? So then does financial development cause economic growth? That's then what is this? So this is supply leading indirectly without saying. So then this sort of way also you can apply. See how they have seen. So that means what sort of causality they identify? They are identifying a supply, the demand following. Sorry, supply leading. Does finance development cause economic growth? So then the second one. So then they need to identify the supply leading hypothesis. So is it happening? The supply leading hypothesis is happening in this country. The panel data was dynamic analysis for Asian developing countries. So then this studies was applied Asian countries, which is on developing level. So they have identified the list of countries: Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, South Korea, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Nepal, Pakistan, Philippines, Singapore, Sri Lanka, and Thailand for the period. In here, they have specifically mentioned the period for 19 to 98. So when the period change, this may be changed, but they need to identify in this period how this is happening. Is this a supply leading or demand following? So, but in here they have specifically mentioned, is it a supply leading? This investigate financial development, promote economic growth, thus supporting supply leading hypothesis. So then they identify at that time, this period, all these countries emphasis supply leading hypothesis. The next one, TARI. This paper examines the direction of causality between financial deepening and economic growth in Nigeria for 1970 to 2013. Financial deepening means the more and more products is going to to the customer. That means, in other way, we can discuss this, more and more link with the financial institution. More and more link with the financial institution means if anyone didn't had a saving or current account or credit card or debit card or any insurance, so then they try to get these facilities with the link of financial institution, any leasing or whatever thing. So now more and more product is being familiarized or customized with among customers. So more and more, in simply you can say, more and more link with financial institution. So then this one and economic growth in Nigeria. So the results show that the growth, growth financial deepening in Nigeria follow supply leading hypothesis. So that means they need to identify what sort of thing is happening, what sort of cause. That means hypothesis that they have implemented. So then they have identified the supply leading. So that means finance sector development lead to economic growth. This means that there is a financial deepening, increase in the provisions of financial services, an increased ratio of money supply to GDP lead to economic growth. So then, so the simply the financial deepening mean more and more buying credits. So that means increasing more and more money supply to the economy. So, so which ultimately increase to economic growth. Yes. So then we are moving to the next one. The basic objective of yes. Is it visible? Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So in here, basic objectives of financial policy for economic growth are to encourage savers to hold their savings in the form of financial rather than unproductive tangible assets. So then that means encouraging savings with financial institution. So in that case, we can say in earlier, we can see in those days, people or customers or households tend to keep money with them. So they didn't go and deposit those money with the finance institution. So they keep money with them. So if they didn't deposit with the financial institution can't utilize this money even to lend to someone else or buy government securities. So if we save more and more with the financial institution, so then the financial institution can use this money for various purposes, which ultimately give benefit for us also, or to save as a form of interest. So if we save this money for unproductive tangible assets or some unproductive matter, so then which is not generating investment or no any productive output for the economy. If you utilize this money even to buy more high mass technology machineries rather than like whatever the thing, which generate income to the economy. So then it is much beneficial. And if we keep these unproductive tangible assets, so then it says it's useless. Provide incentives to induce increase on saving, investment, and promotion. So then more and more encouragement on saving. So then once we talk about on saving, to cater various sector of the aging group, the financial institution has introduced various saving methods, very attractive methods. Some saving for kids, and saving for youth, and saving for that means male and females. So that means woman saving, like that, and elderly. That means old age saving activities, old age higher interest rate activities, and more lending for entrepreneurs, youth group, working group, executives, professionals, like that. Various type of saving products is there. So in that case, all the groups in the economy try to link with financial institutions and investments. So that means more and more investment and production activities. So that means if anyone is in the production sector, and increase the production by giving various machineries, lands, building, like that. Some if that means encouraging the entrepreneurs for investment, do more and more production, hire more and more labor, expand the business by vehicles, machineries, some related lorries, or whatever the thing, like that way. So some sort of encouragement on these things is needed. To achieve expected economic growth, policymakers increase expenditure on investment. So then why they are saying to achieve expected economic growth, increase expenditures on investment. If we utilize expenditures on consumption activities, what happen? That money won't regenerate. If we utilize our saving or expenditure on investment, it will generate more and more money. So then ultimately it is benefit. So then this is apply for household, as well as firm, as well as a country. So even if we a person, if we utilize our expenditure, that means our income, some portion for consumption, some portion for saving, or for sudden requirement, and some portion for proportion for some investment activities or saving, like that. So then it would benefit. It's similar to the firms as well as it is similar to the government as well. So government expenditures need to be have. If we are borrowing something from some other countries, it need to be always need to be investment activities, some not consumption activities. So some to make political popular decisions, free things, transfers, like that. So then this is apply for individual, household, as a country as well. We need to manage expenditures efficiently and effectively. Must encourage financial institution and desired level of price. So then in here, the policymakers need to be, why encourage financial institution? So they are the one who then financial institution play a crucial role in the economy. In most of the government, budget deficit offset in two ways, intentionally and locally, especially the developing countries. So if our local financial institutions are in a stable way, strong, so then government can issue securities and get money and run the economy smoothly. So then, as of that reason, financial institutions need to be encouraged and they need to be safeguarded and introduce some regulations to prevent customers as well as to safeguard financial institution. We know in central bank has a lender of last resort policy. If any financial institutions are near collapse or suffering some sort of issues or managerial administrative issues, central bank intervene as a lender of the last resort and helping on assistance, management, advice, financial and various matters to safeguard them. Why we do so? Why the central bank do so? If any financial institutions collapse, the customer public will assume all the financial institution will collapse same as it is. So then they try to withdraw money from the financial institution. So then things end up with bank run end up with financial crisis end up with economic crisis or crisis of that state or bankrupt, so insolvence of that state. So as of that reason, so safeguard encourage some strong legal framework need to be there and establish a desired level of price. It is obvious. So then this we can see it linked with many various factors. So when the price level is high in a hyperinflation level, if we didn't manage the price, so then our domestic commodities price is high. So then if anyone who is engaged in exportation or fighting with international market, so then they couldn't be able to compete with international uh, market. So then as well as domestic, if the price, if we didn't make it stable, the domestic or the civilians within the country suffer. So then their income is not sufficient. So their income is not sufficient to meet their revenue. So then this, if it is not managed in the price level, this will lead for various crises, exchange rate and increasing taxes like that. So then this, in furthermore, we can say the present some crisis, some we can see in Sri Lanka, some famous investors or the apparel industries are shifting to some other countries because of high tax imposts and instability on prices, and they couldn't compete with the international market, higher labor, raw material price, and other electricity and other essential commodities price. So they cannot sustain. So then they cannot compete in the market. Why? The no price is stable. So this is very much important for smooth growth of a economy. Then, yeah. So then efficiency in financial intermediate. So then financial intermediate. So then we know who's the financial intermediate, financial institution. So then when the financial institution act as the intermediator in between saver and lender, so he need to be act as a efficient. So that means it should be benefit for financial institution as well as saver and lender. Less time, unexpensive medium of exchange means no any transaction cost. So in various way, they need to be helped for both parties. So then this when saver and lender is encouraging, it ultimately benefits for financial institution when they act as a intermediate. So then this need to be have efficiency. And central bank of a country should help directly to promote investment. So then central bank of the country, they need to help promote investment on various matters, getting fund from outside, helping the finance institution like in various way, design economic policies to promote economic growth and enhance public confidence. So then when you are making policies, so all the policy need to be growth perspective and enhance the public confidence means if, as we discussed previously, the central bank or the policymakers or the government need to be establish the public confidence. So then else the things end up with bank run. So then that's why to make the public confidence, central bank also act as a lend of the last resort. If any financial institution is near collapse, so they bail out. If anything, any financial institution suffer from any administration issue, central bank intervene and make solutions. And if some assistance like that, various things. So then in that case, what happened? The public has a confidence on central bank as well as especially all the financial institution. So we need to make confidence on financial institution. So then public has a confidence on public confidence on financial institution. So then the customers or public try to save more and more with the financial institution. So this need to be have. Monetary authority should develop public confidence on financial institution, as I discussed. This to avoid bank run. Strong financial legislative background. So then this will help for both parties, for financial institution as well as uh, for customers. So simple example, recently introduced this microfinance act. Before that, there was many microfinance business, but no legislation, higher interest rate. The way of recovering is so uh, rude. So then it's not on the legal framework, in the legal manner. So then because of this introduction of the microfinance act, all the financial institutions were regulated. So then those sort of uh, uh, illegal activities could be able to mitigate. So then the next one, promote effective commission about finances. So why any financial institution get collapsed, it will affect for others as well, and ultimately lead for a crisis. So then the promote effective confusion. That means when they make the comparison between financial institutions, it should be effective, not to tarnish, not to damage to anyone. So then this is that we call tit for tat. Means we know the famous one that we utilize in game theory in micro. Yeah. So then this not to be happen. And unorganized market should have be developed in organized matter. If anyone in unorganized, illegal, so then we need to come into the legal framework as I discussed in microfinance business. External financial for should be growth promotive, financial for exchange rate, balance of payment. That means all these things need to be in a stable manner. So then economy could be able to perform smoothly. Yes. Any gray area difficulties? Anything that you need to raise? And there was a request on the chat box. Anyway, I have shared all these things with you. Didn't you receive? Sorry, I have shared all these things, first and second, and some reading materials also with you. I think you could be able to get it. Yeah. Yes, you may